Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another video lecture for Psych 370. This one's going to be pretty brief. It's another excerpt from that same Zoom class that I took the first two video lectures for this week from. And in it, I'm going to be talking about something called higher order conditioning. Guys, so far, what I've talked about today has been focused pretty much exclusively on what we would call first order classical conditioning. Yeah. So first order classical conditioning is what we call it when we take a naturally biologically significant unconditioned stimulus like food and we pair it up with a neutral stimulus like a sound in order to turn that neutral stimulus into a conditioned stimulus. In other words, to make it so that that neutral stimulus now elicits a conditioned response. Okay? That's called first order classical conditioning. And once we do that, once that acquisition process has taken place, well, now the conditioned stimulus is no longer neutral, right? We called it neutral at first because it didn't originally elicit a response like salivation, but now, due to its pairings with the unconditioned stimulus, now it does elicit a response. Now it elicits a conditioned response. So what that means is that we could now take that conditioned stimulus, the metronome in this case, and we could pair it up with another stimulus that is still neutral. Okay? So we can basically use that conditioned stimulus from before in the same way as we were using this unconditioned stimulus before. Okay? So in other words, now that this conditioned stimulus, now that this metronome is not neutral, it can sort of play the role of the unconditioned stimulus in further acquisition trials. So for example, if we paired this metronome with food and gotten the metronome to elicit salivation, then we can now take another stimulus that doesn't elicit salivation, like this light, and pair it with the metronome so that the light will also cause the dog to salivate. Yeah. We could do that. And that procedure that I've just described is called higher order conditioning or second order conditioning. Yeah. So the metronome is a first order conditioned stimulus. We'd call that the CS1 because it was paired with the food. It was paired directly with that naturally significant, biologically significant unconditioned stimulus, the food, right? And the light is now a second order conditioned stimulus. It's the CS2 because it acquired its ability to elicit salivation without ever being paired directly with that naturally significant US, okay? The food. So again, that's called second order conditioning or higher order conditioning. Let me give you a human example about how second order or even higher order conditioning could work. Okay? So for this example, let's say that one day you're outside hanging out, minding your own business, and you get stung by a bee. Okay? And as a result of this, let's say that you acquire a conditioned fear of bees, right? So the sting is an unconditioned stimulus that naturally elicits an unconditioned response of pain, right? So you acquire a conditioned response of fear to the sight of bees because you paired up the sight of bees with being stung, right? So you associate the sight of bees with a bee sting. That's first order classical conditioning. Now the sight of bees elicits fear. That's your first order conditioned response, right? But then if you notice a lot of bees buzzing around outside the dumpster by your apartment, then you could also acquire a conditioned fear of the dumpster, right? So the sight of the dumpster could become a second order conditioned stimulus as you learn to associate it with the sight of bees, the first order CS. So that dumpster could convert through its association with this other conditioned stimulus, could convert from a neutral stimulus into a second order conditioned stimulus. I guess it's theoretically possible that you could continue this process almost indefinitely, right? So for example, if you pair that second order CS, the dumpster, with another neutral stimulus, like say the sight of your garbage man, then that garbage man could become a third order conditioned stimulus, okay? So I mean, you could acquire a fear of the garbage man because you associate the garbage man with the dumpster, you associate the dumpster with bees, and you associate bees with bee stings, right? In theory, that could work. However, in practice, third order conditioning and even higher order conditioning tends to be fairly difficult to demonstrate. Okay. So, in the example that I just described, if you did learn to fear the garbage man, then it's likely that your third order fear of him would be much weaker than your first order fear of bees. And you'd probably also acquire that third order conditioned response much more slowly than you acquired the first order one. So there is a general tendency where, as you progress on up the chain from first order conditioning to second order conditioning and so on, you typically get weaker and weaker conditioned responses. Okay. And this is actually something that Pavlov originally noticed. So he found that second order conditioned responses were only about half as strong as first order ones. Third order conditioned responses tended to be quite weak, and he found it impossible to demonstrate fourth order conditioning in his dogs. Now, like your textbook mentions, other researchers have been able to demonstrate fourth order and even fifth order classical conditioning. But the point is, the farther removed a conditioned stimulus gets from direct pairings with the unconditioned stimulus, the weaker the conditioned response to that CS tends to be. But still, higher order conditioning is still an important phenomenon because it means that many stimuli can acquire the ability to elicit conditioned responses, including ones that were never paired directly with a naturally significant US. Okay. So higher order conditioning is an important phenomenon. Okay, well, that's going to do it for this video lecture. I do have a couple more of these planned for you for this week, but as always, please do reach out and let me know if you have any questions. Take care.